Sometimes the most important decision you will ever make does not feel important at the time. It arrives quietly, without warning, dressed like an ordinary moment. And it is only later, sometimes much later, that you trace everything back to that one point, that one breath, that one simple choice. His name was Femi, 24 years old, a fresh graduate of agricultural science from a federal university in Benue State, back home in Lokoja with a degree, a small bag of ambitions, and no clear path forward. He lived with his uncle, Mr. Bayadin, a retired civil servant who had a modest compound near the market and a philosophy about life that he repeated often: do the right thing even when no one is watching. That is the only version of yourself worth building. Femi had heard this so many times growing up that it had become background noise, the kind of wisdom that enters one ear and settles somewhere unexamined, neither rejected nor truly understood. He had been job hunting for 7 months. He had sent applications, attended interviews, followed up politely, and waited. The responses were mostly silence, a few kind rejections, nothing that opened a door. He was not a desperate young man, but he was a tired one. And tired people, when an easy thing finally appears, are sometimes too worn down to ask the right questions about it. The easy thing came in the form of a man named Rotimi. Rotimi was 29, well-dressed, and drove a fairly new car through the neighborhood with a relaxed confidence that young men with nothing often find compelling. He was not a close friend, more a familiar face, someone Femi had known casually for years through neighborhood gatherings and mutual connections. One afternoon, Rotimi stopped his car beside Femi on the road and offered him a lift. During the short drive, he mentioned that he was looking for someone reliable to help him with the business deliveries, mostly moving goods between Lokoja and Abuya. The pay was good. The hours were flexible. Femi asked what kind of goods. Rotimi smiled and said, provisions, electronics, the kind of things people always need. He named a weekly figure that was more than Femi had earned in the past 7 months combined. Femi said he would think about it. He thought about it for 3 days. During those 3 days, the number Rotimi had mentioned kept appearing in his mind. What it would mean for his savings, for his mother who called every week from Kaba asking quietly if things were getting better, for the version of himself he wanted to become. On the third evening, he sat outside in his uncle's compound and turned the whole thing over in his mind. Something was not right. He could not name it precisely. Rotimi had not said anything explicitly wrong, but the vagueness of it, provisions, electronics, the kind of things people always need, sat in his stomach in a way that food does when it is not quite good. He almost ignored that feeling. He told himself he was being paranoid. He told himself that young men in his position did not have the luxury of turning down opportunities because of a vague unease. He told himself Rotimi had grown up in the same neighborhood. How dangerous could it be? He even picked up his phone once to send Rotimi a message saying yes. He put the phone down. He picked it up again. And then his uncle appeared at the compound door, the way older people sometimes do, as if called by something invisible, and sat in the plastic chair beside him. Mr. Bayadin did not ask what was wrong. He simply sat. They watched the evening together for a while. Then his uncle said, without looking at him, whatever you are considering, Femi, make sure you can tell me about it in the morning and feel nothing in your chest. He went inside after that. He said nothing else. Femi sat alone with those words. Make sure you can tell me about it in the morning and feel nothing in your chest. He knew, in that moment, that he could not. That if he said yes to Rotimi and told his uncle the next day, something in him would be uncomfortable. Not because his uncle would shout, but because the man had spent a lifetime being honest, and Femi had grown up wanting to be someone that honesty could stand next to. He sent Rotimi a message that night. He said he had found something else and would not be able to help. Rotimi replied with a simple okay and nothing more. 6 weeks later, Femi heard through the neighborhood that Rotimi had been arrested along with 2 other men at a checkpoint on the Lokoja-Abuya expressway. The goods in the vehicle were not provisions. They were not electronics. Femi heard the news and sat very still for a long time. He thought about the night in the compound, the phone he had picked up and put down, the message he had almost sent, the single decision made in a quiet evening that had, without drama or announcement, kept his name out of something that would have destroyed everything: his freedom, his future, his mother's peace, his uncle's quiet pride. He had not known, when he said no, exactly what he was saying no to. He had only known that something felt wrong, and that he valued the kind of man his uncle believed him to be more than he valued the money. That was enough. It had been exactly enough. He went inside and found his uncle reading in the sitting room. He sat across from him and told him the whole story: Rotimi's offer, the 3 days, the evening in the compound, the message he had sent. His uncle listened without interrupting. When Femi finished, the older man was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I am glad you trusted yourself. Not I am proud of you. Not you made the right choice. Just I am glad you trusted yourself." Femi carried that sentence for a long time afterward. 3 months later, a small agricultural cooperative in Kogi State was looking for a field coordinator, someone with a relevant qualification and enough patience to work with rural farmers on better yield practices. The pay was modest. The work was real. A contact Femi had made during his job search forwarded the listing to him. He applied, was interviewed, and was offered the position. It was not a glamorous beginning. He drove a dusty road to small communities twice a week, sat with farmers who were older than his father, and learned more in those early months than 4 years of university had taught him about the practical weight of his own field. But it was his, built honestly, on ground that was clean. His mother stopped asking quietly if things were getting better. She started asking about the work, the farmers, the crops, the communities. She listened with the particular attention of a woman who recognizes that her son has found something worth talking about. And his uncle, on the evening Femi told him about his first paycheck from the cooperative, simply nodded. "Do the right thing even when no one is watching," he said. This time, Femi heard it differently, not as background noise, as something he already understood. Femi did not make a heroic decision. He did not stand up in front of a crowd, or expose anyone, or sacrifice something visible. He simply sat in a compound one evening, felt something uncomfortable in his chest, and chose to listen to it. That is all. But that small, quiet choice made in the dark, with no audience, with no certainty of what it was protecting him from, redirected everything that came after. We often wait for life's big moments to show us who we are. But character is not usually built in big moments. It is built in the small ones: the hesitation before the wrong decision, the voice inside that says this does not feel right, the willingness to honor that voice even when it would be easier not to. Your instincts, shaped by the values you have been given and the person you are trying to become, will speak to you in those moments. They will not always be loud. They will not always give you reasons you can explain to someone else, but they will be honest. The question is simply whether you are willing to listen. Femi was, and it changed the direction of his life, not with drama, not with noise, but with one quiet choice made on an ordinary evening. That is how it usually happens.